Dave with Taboo Customs. This video today we're going to be working on our M715 project, and for that we are actually going to be focusing on that left front corner of the frame, the one that if you've been watching our other videos you've seen is pretty broken, pretty cracked. It had a cobbled up steering box mount on there. So we're going to be working today to repair that frame and get our new steering box mounting set up. All right, so here is the driver's side frame rail where the steering box was mounted. If you saw our other videos, you know that this had a cobbled up steering box mount, just a 3/8 inch plate and some 1/4 inch plate, cobbled up here for the mount. Now, I don't know if after they did that mount or what they'd done, because normally this, I believe, would have a cast bracket to mount the steering box. The frame actually cracked across the top here, across the bottom, and then all the way down through this bracket here. So this frame rail is not attached to the cross member at all. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going in, cutting all of this out, figuring out what we need to do to mount our new steering box, and then making sure that we get everything tied back in so everything is strong and will be able to withstand the forces that the steering box is going to apply to it. All right, so here we are with that corner bracket removed, and we went ahead and started grinding down where the engine mounts were, since they'd welded on some different engine mounts as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start drawing up this frame, start figuring out how we want to mount our steering box. We'll also be drawing up a piece to go back here, because we will be welding in new engine motor mounts there, and I want to weld something new over here because this frame had actually started separating up here where this weld was at. So I'm going to make probably a U-shaped plate to go over that to ensure that the motor mounts we get in there are solid. Okay, so as I stood here and looked at this a little bit more, I am going to go ahead and work on tying the two frame rails together. I want to make sure that everything is square, so that I do start going and drawing everything up and making parts. I don't have to make changes because I didn't square it up first. So I started looking at the cross member to frame, and what I have found is that the frame rails are not at the same height. You can kind of see here how large a gap is open at the top. I measured the back. The frame at the rear is the same height, within the 16th at the rear. However, here at the front, we're about a 1/4 inch higher on the driver's side than we are on the passenger side. I don't know right now if that's due to, where it's sitting on jack stands, but what I'm going to need to do is support the front horns of the frame rail, make sure I get those at the same height. Then I can start working on the width. We are a little bit wider at the front than we are at the rear of the engine compartment, so we'll get that squared away. Then we'll start welding at least the top and the bottom of the cross member to frame together. Can't really get in here and weld because there's no way to really clean that area out until we get it sandblasted. So once we get it sandblasted, we'll weld there. But one thing we are going to do is I'm going to go in, add some gussets from this cross member to the front and also at the bottom. I'm going to do that on both sides, partially, just to make it look even, but also because in cleaning some of this up, I did find that this bottom weld is cracked. So this side did start to crack. Couldn't find any other cracks anywhere that we looked, so we'll get all that welded up. Okay, so we started to get our steering box mount made. We decided to go with a Cherokee steering box, and for multiple reasons. One, I've built a lot of Cherokees. I have a lot of these steering boxes laying around, so we did have them here to use as a template. Two, they're readily available, and three, they will hold up to the larger tires. I've wheeled Cherokees for many years. I've got friends that wheel Cherokees. I competed in rock crawling in Cherokee, so I'm sure someone will want to argue with me that they won't hold up. But I've got one that's been in a Cherokee for 12 years now and never had a problem with the box, and that was with 5 years of rock crawling on it. Now for the mount, what we're going to do is obviously we're using 1/4 inch here. We've got our inside plate made. We're going to sandwich that with another plate here on the outside. Then we're going to run tubes through our holes down there to actually mount up to our box. Now, normally you'd have on a Cherokee this spacer here. We're not going to run that spacer. The reason being is these aluminum spacers, and you can see this one, how corroded it gets. The dissimilar metals often cause issues with the spacer corroding, and then the bolts will actually break off. So anyway, so that's the plan. The next step for us is we actually have to go over here and cut off this leaf spring bracket, which we aren't going to keep the leaf springs. We're going with coil springs, so it shouldn't be an issue. But anyway, we have to cut this off because our front hole has to be about here. I guess that's another thing that we found is because we are using a power steering box, it is longer than the original manual box. So we did slide that box back, and pretty much we're gonna actually have to trim a little bit of this off just to clear the box, and then remake how this corner connects to the cross member. But we kind of figured we would have to do that, and we've got to do that because we need the clearance for the arm so that we can still have a normal steering setup without doing anything kind of crazy there. Okay, so we've got the inside plate, which we already had. Now we've got our outside plate in place. You can see we ended up having to remove the whole leaf spring bracket there, which doesn't matter because we're taking it off. Cut it around this plate that we already had for the front bumper. So now we're ready to start welding things together. We're going to go ahead, and we've got 2 of our tubes in. We're going to have a 3/4 offset on the inside for those tubes, and we'll have a couple plates we'll weld underneath. All right, so finishing up here, and took quite a bit more than what we had planned, but need to make sure that we get the steering box mounting right. Made of all 1/4 inch. We framed both inside and outside of the frame rail, bottom of the frame rail. Also built it so it looks similar to actually what you see on a TJ as far as the steering box, which obviously we're pretty used to dealing with those. We did have to cut off the leaf spring bracket here, so if you were keeping leaves, this obviously wouldn't necessarily work. You could probably still make it work, you just have to cut that bracket out, but it wouldn't be as easy as what we're doing here. We also ended up making sure we tied this cross member back into both frame rails. If you remember, this frame rail was completely broken away. Added a couple of gussets here, added of course a large gusset on the top. Did similar work on this other side, and of course we will also be adding a steering box brace from the bottom of the box over to the other side of the frame. That will help out quite a bit as well. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can contact us here on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram, or our website, taboocustoms.com. And as always, keep watching if you want to continue seeing videos on our M715 project.